Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to an in-market session focused on how we attract businesses to the Golden Triangle of North Central Montana. I'm very pleased that you all could join us. We will be recording this session so that we can share it with our colleagues who were not able to join us this time around. So I'm Jolene Schalper, Senior Vice President at Great Falls Development Authority. And my focus is specifically on business development strategies. We do a variety of business development strategies, one of which being our business attraction efforts, which we're going to talk about today. How do we attract businesses? So we want to give you a look at the strategies that we use to attract businesses. We are hungry to grow the Great Falls, Montana market. So I'm going to share my screen here and show you our, let me see here. That is not it. Of course, you have it all prepped to go, and then when you go to show what you want to show, it's not popping up. So 2 seconds, and I'm going to show you this. There we go. And hang on, too many windows open, people. Let me share now. There we go. There we go. You should be able to see our strategic plan. So as I mentioned, we're hungry to grow the Great Falls region, and this is the North Central region, the Golden Triangle of Montana. Our mission is the growth and diversification, but we really focus on those higher wage career opportunities and improving our market competitiveness. We provide leadership and resources to make things happen that otherwise wouldn't happen. You can find the strategic plan on our website, but I wanted to pop this up so you could see the strategic sectors that we focus on in our business attraction initiatives. We focus on areas that data has shown we have a competitive advantage: food, agriculture, bioscience, processing, business services, regional retail and services for the region, energy, tourism, logistics, advanced manufacturing, defense, and healthcare. This year, we've decided to invest additional capital in our business attraction strategies, focusing on that food and agriculture processing, ingredient manufacturing, and the business services. So you can find that on our website at www.growgreatfallsmontana.org if you're looking for our full strategic plan. But today we're going to focus on the 3 areas of business attraction that we've identified for this year's strategy. We're going to focus on how we generate leads, what content we utilize in that lead generation, and the services that then we provide to those leads. So we're going to start with how we generate leads. Our investors want results, as do we. The mantra around GFDA is, okay, well, what was the result? You know, what did we accomplish? And so thanks to our investors' increased investment in our strategies this fiscal year, we're doubling down on lead generation. We need to attract more businesses to the Golden Triangle. So in typical years, lead generation for us includes subscriptions to industry newsletters and data sources so that we can identify target companies, attendance at strategic events, so some conferences, trade shows, sometimes it's private industry sector events to meet with those target companies. We focus on building relationships with target companies. That's through emails, through phone calls, personal visits. We do business development trips to go and meet with existing companies that might not be headquartered in our region, but also on those trips, we meet with identified targets. We advertise our community through strategic assets like the Agri-Tech Park. We advertise that, typically we've advertised through free listings. And we rely on partners to share leads with us. Everybody is in the game for business attraction. You never know who you're sitting next to on a plane when we get back to flying, or who you're on a Zoom reception with that you might think would be a perfect fit for our community. This year, we're increasing those lead generation efforts by contracting with industry leaders in business attraction. We've contracted with DCI to help us in our strategic sectors, and we've contracted with CoStar LoopNet in order to provide a premium listing for our agri-tech park, one of our competitive advantages. So we've invited Mr. Steve Duncan with DCI to kick us off today by sharing the approach that we're taking with DCI's guidance. So Steve, I am going to make you the host and the captain of the ship here so that you can steer. And so there we go.
Excellent, thank you. So I see some familiar names. I think I've run into a couple of you in previous presentations and whatnot. So good to see those of you again, and good to meet those that I have not met yet. So I'm Steve Duncan. I'm Senior Vice President of Lead Generation for DCI, Development Counselors International. For a brief background, we were actually started in 1960, so this is our 60th year in business, and we specialize in working with oh, and it looks like we actually have somebody in the waiting room. I'm going to admit them if that's okay, Jolene.
Thank you.
Looks like Brian. Yep, sure. So yeah, Development Counselors International, we specialize in working with places. So part of our business is on the tourism side, and we work with destination marketing organizations. And then the largest part of our business is on the economic development side, where we work with economic development organizations, just like GFDA. So we do a variety of different marketing services, started in PR, but we do websites, we do lead generation, we do digital marketing. What's exciting is the program that we're doing with GFDA is really a compilation of a lot of those. We have drawn inspiration from a trend that has recently started within kind of the technology, marketing tech space, enterprise technology called account-based marketing. It's a very popular B2B strategy that prioritizes high-value prospects and attempts to educate them and eventually over time convert them into valuable sales leads, prospects, and eventually have a higher conversion rate in bringing them through to investment. And so we have attempted to adapt that to the needs of economic development. It's a very unique industry that we're all in here in economic development. Not everything out there in the general space works for us, but we've unlocked this program that has been successful in other markets around the country. Columbus, it's one of the top organizations, is rated by site consultants. One Columbus is the organization. We've been doing it with them for 4 years, and we're really excited to be able to do this with Great Falls because we think there's a lot of potential here. So I'm going to briefly share my, let's see here. I might need host access. Oop, there we go. Got it again. All right. So I'm just going to run through nothing major here, but I did want to just kind of run through what account-based marketing is. Some of you may be familiar with it. Can you see this here? A little circle graph. Perfect. So some of you may be familiar with this. We've run into situations where some people have actually been doing it themselves, which is great. And so what account-based marketing, or ABM, really is it's a sales approach to marketing. It kind of combines the two. We find it really aligns the needs of business development with the capabilities of marketing. But number one, it's multi-channel. So a lot of lead generation programs involve researching and then calling that list of prospects and trying to get them to become a lead. What we realized in doing that ourselves for many years was that it's very hard for someone to buy from you if they don't know who you are, what you offer, what your value proposition is. And so we really feel that it's important to engage them across multiple channels, such as LinkedIn, direct mail when people are actually working from the office, some email marketing, and then we do the direct outreach as well. But we feel like it's very important to inform and educate them on what Great Falls has to offer before we can expect them to take a meeting with us about an expansion there. And so our approach mixes in these different channels with frequency. So that's the second part of it. We are really looking to be in touch with these folks on a regular basis. And when I say be in touch with them, it's generating touch points, whether that's through digital advertising. The capability exists for us to get very, very targeted. So we can advertise on LinkedIn to only our prospects. So we don't have to waste time advertising to a bunch of people that are never going to be interested in Great Falls. We feel like we have a target list of companies that could one day be interested in Great Falls. We're going to spend our time advertising to them. And we're going to do that on a regular basis. And then we're going to create other touch points through email, through direct mail, again, when that's relevant again. And we kind of reach out to a series of companies each month just to see if the timing is right for them to possibly consider expansion and possibly consider Great Falls. So frequency is a second piece of that. And then number 3 is multifunctional. So we're doing all of these, but we're doing them across the decision-making tree. Again, a lot of lead generation programs focus very, very highly on the CEO, the CFO, and maybe a corporate real estate person. That is the typical formula with most companies in this space. What we look at is, you know what, a business services company, we might want to go after the HR or the IT track of that company to make sure that they're also educated on Great Falls. Or in manufacturing and agriculture, we might want to go after chief manufacturing, perhaps to the extent of agriculture, similar to Cargill, maybe an R&D person. And so, you know, we work that entire decision-making tree to make sure that, you know, we realize there's no one that is chief site selection officer in a company. It comes from all different parts of a company. So we want to make sure we've got our bases covered there. And then as we initiate certain touch points, we'll make sure, you know what, if this is a talent related touch point where we're talking about something of talent significance, maybe we do just send it to that HR track. And then the next time we're in touch with them, maybe it's something more operationally focused. And so we'll focus our efforts in reaching those executives. So we're really, you know, it's a multi-pronged approach. But we found that it generates really good opportunities. And I think this is one of the most important aspects, the targeting across the decision tree, because what we have found when we have done this for other communities is that we are finding the right people to be talking to for that company. So even if there isn't an immediate opportunity, we're still generating a quality impression, a quality touch point, and sometimes a meeting with somebody that when they do expand, they're the ones that are in charge. And so they're the ones that we're going to have that conversation with eventually anyway. And so the quality of these opportunities, whether they are baked and ready to go, we had one that we turned around a couple of years ago. From literally the meeting that we first set up to the time that they set up an operation in Columbus was 5 months. I don't think we've ever seen anything move that quickly before. So yeah, Jolene, I see you shaking your head. So sometimes they're ready to go, they're baked, and they know they've seen something about Great Falls, and so we catch them when they're ready to take that next step. Other times it is not fully baked, but if we're getting in touch with the right person, we are so far ahead of the game than these other communities. So with all that in mind, we have this process. So we're in the middle of this process right now. So we're about 2 months in, and we're kind of on phase 2 in some way. Well, phase 2 and 4 here, or 3 and 4. Sorry. So the process is we distinguish the value proposition. We had a lot of meetings with businesses within Great Falls by phone. We talked a lot with Brett and Jolene and their team. And we really tried to figure out what is going to give us the best bang for the buck, or, you know, the most juice for the squeeze, so to speak, in a way that is really meaningful. You know, it's not something where you guys are automatically known for, but it's also not something that's so aspirational that we're never going to have any luck with it. It's really right in the middle. where can we bring the biggest value? So we tried to find the value proposition. What we ended up settling on was kind of this, we're calling it BPO for short, but it's essentially business services, that whole strain of operations, which you guys have a successful track record with. We think there's an opportunity there. So that's one area that we're focusing on. And then the ag and manufacturing space was another one where we saw some opportunities. And not necessarily going after the big companies, but actually going after companies that fit a similar characteristic to the ones that are already there. One of the biggest things that we took away from those interviews was most people had some sort of association with Montana, not necessarily Great Falls, but Montana. And that gave them the open door. And sometimes it wasn't the CEO that had the relationship. It was somebody within the company who had a past where they were like, hey, you might want to check this place out. So we tried to, as best as possible in our target list, mirror that through isolating the ideal customer, that second phase there. And then we worked on drawing together content. I'm going to show you here in just a second a landing page that we've drafted that I think everybody is really pleased with in terms of how that came out. Jolene updated me the other day that the main website is now forwarding to this for all business attraction stuff, and so I think from an informational perspective, this is a great tool. We encourage all of you to use this landing page. I'll show it again in just a moment. So we drafted that landing page, then we drafted a series of advertisements on LinkedIn. We are going to be working on an email campaign here in the next couple weeks that will get out shortly after Thanksgiving to, again, mix up those channels and create a new touch point. The orchestration of those. So we've got the content, we know what we're going to talk about. We're then orchestrating. We're trying to figure out, how do we mix in these messages so that we're not inundating these companies, but we're just, it's almost like subliminal messaging. In many ways, that's what we're aiming for. We want them, when we reach out, to be like, you know what, gosh darn it, I've heard about Great Falls before. I have no idea where, but yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. I remember being intrigued by it. So that's what we want, is them to receive our call from a position of knowledge, not from a position of, that's what we're trying to avoid. So, as we go through probably in early 2021, we'll have a little bit of an idea after doing some outreach, what the feedback is. That helps us to fine tune our list a little bit, maybe helps us fine tune our message when we're reaching out to companies, maybe with our advertising. We start to collect some feedback, and that's really useful as we look to continue this program, through the first half of next year. And so, anyway, that's the process that we engage in with regard to ABM, and we're making really good progress. We just got started. We've been doing about a month of advertising to these companies, and so now we're ready to start mixing in some of those other touch points. So I'm going to exit out of here real quick, and I might need to stop sharing and then reshare if I'm correct. So one moment here, give me a second. So stop share. I'm going to go to a different share here. So I'm going to show you the landing page. There. Is that what you're seeing there, Jolene? Perfect. Great. So this is the landing page that we drafted, and we really think it's important to emphasize that Great Falls is in Montana, so we made the URL. It's it's called a subdomain. It's a expedited way to set up a landing page, a custom landing page like this. So expand to montana.growgreatfallsmontana.org. That's what we decided on. And it's just this great storytelling platform for how to position Great Falls, to really let people know. And I realize that some of this may be a little tough for folks to read on your screen. So I know Jolene is planning a follow-up of some of these materials. So we'll make sure you guys get a version of this. And again, we encourage you to use this. If you were talking with people, oh, hey, let me send you some more information, feel free to use this link and share it with them. But everything is search engine optimized here. And we are also sending all of our advertising campaigns here. Our emails are most likely going to come back to here. We've got this call to action, to contact us. Rocky Mountain, smooth business climate, really emphasizing that, that key message here with a map that's, customizable. Let people play around with, oh gosh, I'm in Salt Lake. How far is that? Okay, yeah, I got that right here along the I-15 corridor. Great. So, there's some interactivity here. And then, workforce, that was one of the themes that came through as something that was really important for us to emphasize. And that's such a top priority of companies right now. So we talk about, the strong partnerships with some of the local schools. And then we've got business services and manufacturing. And manufacturing, we broaden it beyond just ag, but we definitely have ag as a part of this in terms of, we kind of see them. We know not all ag is manufacturing, and we know not all manufacturing is ag. And so we've got that all accounted for. But this really gives us a versatile way to tell the business story and still provide information that's very relevant to whichever company is coming through. So we've got some downloads that are available, the labor supply study that's very relevant for companies, available sites and buildings. So we're sending them directly there. Food processing operating costs. So for those ag specific companies, they have some information here. Call to action to reach out, and then just a little bit more information, notable employers, some numbers that kind of summarize the Great Falls story, and then another call to action to reach out. So, ideally, we'd love it if Jolene got some phone calls or some emails here from some of our prospects, and hopefully she gets a handful during the course of the year. But we'll also be doing direct communications to companies, but this is kind of our backdrop to proactively go after those companies and see if they're interested in an opportunity. One last thing about account-based marketing, it is not solely a lead generation program. We want that to be the outcome, but as you can see, there's marketing aspects that are built into this that have benefits beyond just was a lead generated. So going back to Jolene's comment, what was the result? We definitely want to deliver leads for you before this program is over. And this is something that we can build on long-term. There's definitely long-term aspects here. But also, what is the result? It's people better understanding the Great Falls story and us concentrating that marketing. We're not doing mass marketing. We're doing very concentrated marketing on those prospects that we think are best aligned to a potential future operation in Great Falls. So I am happy to answer any questions, but I did want to share just a review of that. We really have enjoyed working with the team so far. It's been a really strong partnership, and we're excited about starting some of the direct outreach here fairly soon. So again, happy to take any questions. All right. Excellent.
Steve,
Well, yes.
I've got a question.
Yes.
You've been doing this with our friends in Columbus for a number of years now. Aside from the direct results, what are the indirect benefits that they're seeing from doing this year after year?
Yeah, great question. So, I will say, as far as those direct results, the first 2 years that we did this with Columbus, we generated a confirmed investment, not just a project, but an investment that landed in Columbus. In the third year, we had a company that received an incentive offer from the Columbus folks, and it was supposed to be accepted sometime last spring when COVID hit. So obviously that delayed things, but we were hoping to have a 3-for-3 record going with them. Some of the indirect results have really been, some valuable intel from companies that we've been able to talk to and at least get some feedback on from where, it wasn't a fit, but we found out why it wasn't a fit. We also identified we've identified a number of opportunities where they are not ready to invest now. But I think it was back in January, we had a meeting that we were setting up with the client when they were traveling. So back when we were all traveling almost a year ago. So they were going to a market. We had a meeting set up. It ended up being canceled. And that was a downer. We really were excited about that meeting. We just followed up with them the other day, and they said, you know what? Because we checked in with them, we said, listen, some companies have been hurt by this. We understand if that's you guys, but we also understand that this has been a boon for a lot of companies. And it so happens that they're one of those that it's been really good. And so the COO of the company was like, you know what? Let me talk with our team. We're big fans of Columbus. And we want to, so let me talk about that. We are seeing a lot of demand for our product as a result of this, and we see it being long-term. So it's just these touch points are much more meaningful than we ever saw with traditional lead generation, where, if it's not a meeting, it doesn't exist. That was kind of the approach. You're constantly going for, I'm trying to meet numbers. The client told me I need 15 meetings. I got to get those 15 meetings at any cost. This is about trying to educate people. And then when you do talk to them, you're not just tossing them aside because they're not ready to meet right now. You're actually, you know what, this is a company we need to keep an eye on. And so we had another company, not part of that 2 for 2, 3 for 3 scenario. It was a project. Columbus was in the last 3, and they paused the project. This had nothing to do with COVID. They paused it in 2019. But we've been keeping in touch with this company. They actually just made a big donation in Ohio. And so we're like, oh, time to follow up. Someone just made a big donation to a university in Ohio. It was the CEO of the company. And so we're checking in to see, hey, are you guys interested? We see you're investing in data analytics. This is something that our region specializes in. Maybe there's some way to locate in Columbus, even though you're donating to Dayton. So it's just the life cycle of these companies is much more alive. We're able to maintain the relationships a little bit better. The whole mindset of ourselves, of our client, has completely shifted to where we want to identify potential opportunities, not just immediate opportunities. And those potential opportunities can be a few years down the road sometimes. I saw something in the chat about direct mail.
Yep.
Yeah, great question, because we actually get this question a lot on direct mail. The fact that so how do I put this? We've become such a digitally reliant culture that direct mail sometimes stands out, just like, you can send a thank you email or you can send a handwritten note, right? So we've done all sorts of things on the direct mail front. A colleague of mine and I, 2 years ago, sat down and hand wrote 700 addresses for a direct mail letter that we sent, because I talked to a CEO and he said, the only thing that I ever open up is when it's handwritten. And so we tried that, and that was one of those investments that we got from that was from that initiative. We did find out that that's not necessarily scalable, but it was something that we tried. We tried another one where we did a creative mailer, a little, kind of a grow with us sort of thing. It was a little desktop, like planner box. So it was this thing made out of cardboard. You opened it up, it had this little packet in it. And if you put the soil, you just added water and the soil kind of expanded and there's seeds in there. And it actually was a little nice, cute desktop planner box for, we were promoting ag at that time for another client. This was also a couple of years ago. And we had some really, I think there were 4 meetings that were set up from that one, just because it was out of the ordinary. It was different. We have settled to more of a, we're not going over the top. There's a certain limit to that, I think, and you want to have a sense of, we don't want to get too far off the message. But what we found is it's not like they're responding to the direct mail, but it does give us an opportunity to call and follow up. And then they're like, oh yeah, I remember that. And that's where we learned, you know what, you can make an impression. Part of account-based marketing is not always getting someone to visit your website right away, you know, getting that direct response. Sometimes it's just the impression. And if your messaging is value-based, if it has something in it for the end audience, if it's informational, and tied to what their needs are, they will remember that. The value of that impression is so much greater. And then when you do reach out, it makes that conversation so much easier. So that's really how we've looked at direct mail. It's not about generating a response so much, but it's about getting them to stop and pause. Wow, this is something that was sent to me. And then when we do follow up, it's like, oh yeah, I read a little bit about that. That was pretty interesting. And the hope is they give us, you know, the opportunity for a meeting, or at least give us some feedback as to why it's not a fit. Any
Great,
other
thank you.
questions? Excellent. Yeah.
Well, you can keep the questions coming either in the chat box or, you know, feel free to unmute. Oh, Mark, did you have a question?
I guess, you know, Brett, Jolene, everybody on the staff, you guys have been at this for a long time. And there were people at this for a long time before you. And varying approaches, a lot of hard work, and a lot of different perspectives. And this sounds like a very solid and well thought out approach. And do you have a sense of why we've struggled with this for so many years? And I'm not looking for blame. I'm just trying to figure out why. You know, why is it that we face what we face, and does that help us create the path forward and maybe do different things? Or I think there's certainly a big school of thought, which is part of it, that nobody knows who we are or where we are, so they can't make the decision to come here, I guess, is part of the equation. The second thing, I guess, and maybe it's way too simplistic, is that in order for people have to make money to live. And many people want to be more successful and do better. So if people have to make money to live, that means that we have to have companies and places to employ them. And so if that's the case, is there anything we've learned from the past that helps us move forward? I guess I'm not quite sure. I'm rambling, but I'm trying to figure out, are we really understanding the whys of why people would want to be here? How do we sell that? What have we done in the past that maybe we can adjust a little bit to have more effectiveness in what we're doing?
Mark, that's a great, fantastic question. I'll give a standpoint from having run GFDA for 14 years, and I would love to hear Jolene's perspective and Steve's perspective. First off, of course, is resources. We are out-resourced by most of our competing communities and states and provinces. Montana does not have a business attraction effort. So if I was working in Utah or North Dakota or Wyoming or South Dakota or Idaho, just to name some surrounding states, or Alberta, I would be receiving or be part of a certain number of qualified leads generated by the state effort every month. I can still count on two hands, actually closer to one hand, the number of qualified leads I've received from the state in the 14 years I've been here total. Mm-hmm. So it's not a criticism, it's just the state does not have a business attraction effort. So we have to do it all by ourselves. We have tried to partner with some other cities in Montana, but there are very few that mount sustained professional business attraction efforts, and sometimes they're chasing different industries. But resources is certainly a limitation. We've averaged about $425,000 a year invested in GFDA. There's a cost that we pay for fundraising, whether we pay a staff person or a consultant to do the fundraising. So let's say you've got to take 75 grand off of that, that's 350,000. Then we use money to match our Small Business Development Center and our Procurement Technical Assistance Center that are helping local entrepreneurs and businesses. So take another 75,000 off of that. Now you're down to 275. So 275 is what we have available to split between business retention and expansion and business attraction. By the time you pay for a staff person or two, there's not a whole lot of resources there. So it's, it's hard to compete with communities that are investing much more. That being said, we're constantly looking at how do we rise to the level that we're at least being considered, and then we work the heck out of a lead or a prospect to stay in the game, stay in the competition once we're in the game. So we keep trying a variety of things. We think this is a smart way to go, because we found that if we've been talking, like we've been trying to get some pulse processors to set up shop in the area. Well, our first year going to a pulse industry trade show, people really wouldn't give us the time of day. When we were back the third time, we had met with them, we had had a beer or coffee with them, they had heard about us, they developed that relationship, they knew we weren't going to blow smoke at them. Then they would start to engage, and we'd start to have real meaningful conversations. So that's kind of the idea of this. Is Great Falls is not oftentimes top of mind. We're the 367th biggest metro area in the U.S. So we think this can have some impact. On the other hand, I keep hearing from colleagues in communities our size that are wondering, how do we keep landing deals? Because business attraction deals are few and far between. So, we would love to have a major announcement every quarter, and no one's hungrier than us to get more deals. But we do have to pat ourselves on the back that you look at FCR, you look at ADF, you look at Blue Cross and Blue Shield, just to name some recent ones. I think part of it is managing expectations, given the incentives we have on the table. How many business attraction deals can we land? I wish, we were just talking with Teresa about this afternoon, I wish we could get all of our investors more engaged in working their networks, both for just market research. Hey, do you know about this company? They seem to be growing, or what have you. But also just, actively marketing, because if that would be the most inexpensive way to increase the effort to work the deals. It's a very low return on investment in terms of how many companies we have to talk with to land a deal. When we've tried other things, Centene was landed by purchasing lists from companies like Steve's that specialize in targeting, And it was 2 years of pretty much full-time on the phone, calling through that list, working that out to land the Centene deal. So it's just, we may talk with 5,000 companies to find the company that would consider us, that we can get into the running. That's a long-winded thing. Steve, Jolene, you want to add in?
Yeah, you know, I would just say for communities of Great Falls size, two of the very first things that we recommend that they do are work very closely with their state economic development office, which Brett just told you how that's gone, and try to work with site consultants who will sometimes be more receptive to, you know, smaller communities that can offer value that doesn't always show up in the data. Unfortunately, site consultants are very incentive focused. And so that, again, kind of removes or kind of stands as an obstacle for Great Falls to get some otherwise, you know, potential flow of opportunities. So, you know, those are two things. You know, if Great Falls is somewhere in the Southeast, you got a lot of incentives to work with, and you're probably working a lot more with site consultants. But because you're in Montana, where there's not a whole lot to offer from an incentive standpoint, then you know, that does cut off a potential source of projects. So I can share, you know, again, DCI has worked in this space. We know economic development groups across the country, across the world, where we have a very high perception of GFDA and how entrepreneurial the organization has been, and how productive it's been given the resources it has. And so I would say, you know, everyone's struggling to turn projects, especially now, but even before now. Communities of a similar size are always struggling to get projects. What you guys have turned around, when we researched this project and this opportunity, when the RFP came out, we were blown away by some of the deals that you guys have landed. And so I think, you know, hopefully this program is able to generate some quality opportunities. Continuing to do what you're already doing will continue to generate some opportunities. Will they always be plentiful? No, but I think if you can focus on getting quality ones and being resourceful, working with investors and going to these trade shows and just being resourceful, you know, you'll continue to see opportunities come about that are a good fit for Great Falls. What we find is too many people are focused on big numbers of opportunities and not the right opportunity. And I think that's why we align very well with this sort of ABM approach.
Yeah, and I'd concur. And Mark, you know, one of the things, like Brett said, and I just can't emphasize this enough, is that Great Falls has not spent resources on business attraction. I mean, holistically, our community spends very little resources on marketing and business attraction. And so knowing that, and our investors have actually increased the resources, which is fantastic. And they'll only do that if we have results, of course. But, you know, we're scrappy, frankly. We're a scrappy community. We see what we have and we go with best practices. The relationship development seems to be the key for us. And as Steve said, when DCI was doing their research, a key component that they kept hearing from businesses is a tie to Montana. So we've looked to identify those businesses that we could have a competitive advantage on them strategically locating here, whether it's for access to Canada, whether it's for access to raw materials, and identify those companies, and then further try to hone in on what is that tie to Montana? Where's their tie? Because almost everybody has an affinity for Montana, but what's that tie, so that then we can build that relationship? That also works with site selectors. The two top recommendations that Steve was saying they make to communities of our size are the work with the state, which we try to make inroads there, but the state doesn't really have a business attraction program, so that's difficult. But B, site selectors. And that is difficult for the reasons that Steve mentioned, but one area that we do well in is identifying site selectors that are working with companies that would be a good fit in our area, those mid-sized companies in the right industries, and building those relationships. So I've been working, and we were doing this before I took on this role, but working hard to develop strong relationships. The Blue Cross Blue Shield deal that Brett was talking about was from a site selector relationship that he had built. I'm going to say it, Brett, decades ago. And that site selector knew that he was up here and said, oh, wait a minute, we have to look at Great Falls. I know Brett. And that's it, that they trust us. We build that credibility. We build that relationship so they know whether it's a company executive at a different level in the company, from the CEO to the development manager. We build some type of relationship so they know that they can trust the information that we provide them to keep us on their list. And then once they come here, we wow them, and then hopefully they land here.
Yeah, good points. And Steve, do you think that, I mean, obviously in the scheme of things, we're still really early on in the COVID situation from a business perspective, and it certainly has impacted some businesses more than others. But do you think there's some sort of a play in the COVID environment, for lack of a better way to say it, if you're going to run for the hills, run here? You know, kind of a mentality. I don't know if that's, seems like that may be one advantage for us right now, timing that way. I don't know how you message that, but I don't know.
It's a common question that we get, especially now. And we're getting it for suburban communities. We're getting it for, you know, mid-sized cities, from small cities, from rural areas. We're getting it from the whole spectrum, which is part of the answer. People may be running for the hills, but there's a lot of hills. So
Yeah.
what makes your hill better,
Right.
right? So what we're telling clients is there's a very limited sellability there, for lack of a better term, because at the end of the day, you're still competing against people that were thinking about Great Falls before. We're not thinking about Great Falls versus San Francisco. They're thinking about Great Falls versus the surrounding states, and probably even within the state, you know, similar communities. And so, you know, I think it's important to be active right now. Some people want to pull back. So I think it's important that our message is out there, because it's almost like, you know, we had talked about subliminal messaging earlier. It's almost like if we're out there and they're seeing this, then when they identify on their end, gosh, I don't want to be in this huge dense area anymore. Man, I'd love to go fly fish. I'd love to go have some open space and not, you know, share a wall with a neighbor necessarily, or share an apartment with a neighbor. I just want to get out there and have some space. We're present. We're part of that thought process. But as far as messaging toward it, we still have way too many competitors for that to be a differentiation. It's a great question though. And like I said, it's one we're getting from a lot of different areas. But that is our advice to all of those communities, is that you still have to differentiate what makes you better than all those other places that share similar characteristics to you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, thank you, Steve. We appreciate that. I'd like to keep moving on our agenda to showcase a little bit, before we close, the content that we're utilizing, which we will be sending this out to you in a follow-up a message to everybody. But the content that we're utilizing on the business attraction, and one such is our competitive advantage of the Agri-Tech Park. We've been advertising the Agri-Tech Park on LoopNet for free. And our views of the Agri-Tech Park were a couple hundred a year. Now, and I'm going to share this with you so you can see our listing. This year, we also invested in a partnership with CoStar LoopNet, an advertising partnership, to really feature, oops, okay, stop sharing, hang on. When I tried to make the screen bigger, I moved to Jobs EQ instead of LoopNet. Which, Mark, I owe you some Jobs EQ. There we go, there we go. Okay, let me reshare the screen. Here we go, there it is. So you should be able to see the LoopNet CoStar listing that we have. I typed in Montana when I typed in this, this list to show you where we come up. Number 1 in Montana. You can actually continue to go out and see how many properties are listed on LoopNet. This is the industry standard for commercial brokerages, and the listing, but from promoting our listing into this, I'll click on it and so you can see this. Promoting our listing allows us to put additional information. You can see that we have some aerial shots. We have our flyers on here. So not only do we pop up higher in searches, and we pop up if they're looking for industrial land anywhere in the nation, our listing, because of our premium feature, will come up. It's another one of those touch points as companies are looking to expand. And then we're able to talk a little bit about the lots that we have available, a description of our market, some investment highlights, provide additional links to our flyers and whatnot, and track then those leads. The other benefit of this is that as people click on our listing, we can see what companies and states they're coming from. And we're able to get a little bit more market data for who is in the industrial space looking at our market. And I'll include a link to that listing in the follow-up. We've also engaged, when we're talking about the content that we utilize, thank you, Mark, and thank you for your participation. We've also engaged in DCI with some videography and some local videographers. We're partnering. It's a partnership on some videos specific to business attraction and business services that we'll be working on over the next couple of months, so that we can utilize those in the LinkedIn campaigns and social media campaigns and on our web to tell those compelling stories and to really reach these audiences that we want to have multiple touch points with. It's that frequency, like Steve said. So then what happens after we provide the content, we have the leads? Well, the services that we provide to leads, this is where we really feel we have a competitive advantage. We connect the leads to our investors for the services that they may need, whether it be architect engineering. We give them a list of every company that invests in us and recommend that they make multiple touch points so they find a company that fits them. So we connect them from the get-go. It's focused on the lead, though, on what their needs are. So it just kind of depends on what that individual company needs at the moment. The first thing that we talk with our companies about, is coming in and looking around and visiting the market. Once they're in market and have a location, then we're connecting them with the city and county right away, because we highly recommend businesses talk early and often with the city and the county. And we connect them with different types of incentives that might fit their project. Montana is a lower incentive state, but we do have some competitive incentives that we can put on the table. Before we even get them here for the site visit, though, typically we do a proposal, and I want to just share with you the proposal that we typically put together. Just an example. And so I need to do that and that. All right, so let me share with you an example of a proposal. So this is just a generic agriculture processing proposal that we put together for the advantage of agriculture processing in Great Falls, Montana. We put together something unique to the company in the introduction. We talk about the incentives. This company really wanted to know about different types of incentives we can use. For this one, there's a big tax savings in the competitive markets that they were looking at. The Big Sky Trust Fund is a job creation grant. All of these are the Big Sky Trust Fund and the Primary Sector Workforce Training and the Montana Board of Investment are focused on those primary sector, meaning 50% of their income is coming from outside of the state or region, and higher wage jobs. So they use the litmus of the median wage job. Right now for Big Sky Trust Fund, for a company to get an incentive on creating new jobs, Those jobs have to be at $20 an hour in Cascade County, and that does include benefits that the employee decides to take. So you can see for this particular example, we were able to package a $10.5 million incentive package for the company if they take advantage of all of the tools. We don't always lead with that. I put together a package this summer for a company that their biggest advantage to Montana that they thought was our climate, that we have 4 seasons. That was very important for their testing and prototyping, so we led with that. We really try to do research that we lead with what the company is looking for, and that's key when we're responding to these leads. We put in Great Falls advantages. For this case, again, it was our tax advantage and our incentive advantage was what this company was most interested in. But then we always put in additional data, the Great Falls top line data. Our business operating costs are 92% of the national average. And now we need to change this as of last week. Our cost of living is just 89% of the national average. Low cost of living with a high quality of living. Low cost of doing business with a high return on investment. Those are some of the value propositions. Our low renewable energy rates, the substantial water rights. We always talk about the MSA, the Metropolitan Statistical Area, of 81,816 for Great Falls. But then the service center is one that we really try to help companies understand. Our population web reaches out 210,000 residents. They are coming here for their doctor's appointments, for their shopping. While our MSA in living in the immediate area is the 81, almost 82,000, we really have a reach of about 210,000. That number also correlates with what benefits and the clinic utilize when they're talking about their medical services, who they provide medical services to on a routine basis. We talk about our just regular statistics, and we're very proud to be home of not just American companies, but successful Canadian, French, Japanese, and Spanish-owned operations. So those are just some of the selling points that we put in here. And I'm emphasizing these because we want you to be a leader with us on talking about these prime selling points, that we are 89% cost of living of the national average, that our cost of doing business is 92%. I'm going to share this example with you as well so that you can go in more depth, but we always put together a success story. For this particular operation, we wanted to showcase the reach of, with an international company, and we decided to utilize the ADF success story, complex steel components, how it's always nice that they ship down to Atlanta, Georgia. People are very surprised when they hear that part of the new Atlanta Falcons Stadium was made right here in Great Falls, but that shows the opportunities for transportation and that we reach well beyond the Montana market. We're able to talk about the incentive packaging that we're able to put together for ADF, and then the long-term commitment to partnership with them. And then we also share with our leads and prospects their team on the ground. We act as, I like to say, concierge. When I'm working with a company, or whether any of members of our team, we are here to make their choice easy, that they choose Great Falls, but then to make sure that every step of the process, any ways that we can help, we do. And so sometimes that means they need us to schedule appointments with key city leaders with them. Sometimes we're bringing in other businesses. Sometimes it's who they're having dinner next to because their spouse will be moving with them to the market and is very interested in the symphony. And so we make sure that they're seated accordingly. We try to cater to our business's needs and offer those concierge services. So once we get the leads in, Steve, I hope that you're assured that our team will act accordingly to make sure that we do what it takes in order to make sure that Great Falls is their new home. And then it goes beyond that. I'm still working with FCR. I still work with ADF. We still work with these companies that are within our community for their ongoing support and success. So that is what I had on my list for our agenda today. And I see that we're right at 5 o'clock. What other questions do people have, or what other discussion points would you like to bring up? And I'm going to turn it over to Brett to wrap things up.
Thank you, Jolene, and thank you, Steve, and thank you all. This is pretty exciting for us to be able to invest some new things in business attraction. Our board, this is my daughter's new cat, our board has really gone all in response to the pandemic and the economic upheaval. As Steve mentioned, some economic development entities have decided to retrench. We have leapt forward. We're putting more resources into all of our efforts this year, including business attraction, than we ever have before. As you know, we launched a talent attraction effort in January. We have given that effort significant new resources in our fiscal year that started in July. Still, compared to competing communities, it's very small, but we're trying to make very effective use of every dollar that we have to put to work. Some of the other things that we're looking at in business attraction is partly in response to COVID, but also just looking at where can we get more impact on the ground. We do track every email, every web page. We look at all the analytics, what social media, what LinkedIn posting is. We look at all the analytics, what's producing results and not. But really, the only thing you care about is what we care about, which is investment on the ground, high wage or higher wage jobs on the ground. We're looking for results. We are looking at increasing our investment in business attraction even more. We're considering some major investments in our website to make it more competitive. And that's because one thing COVID has done, which is made the digital world even more critical than it was, that it has been heading in over the last 20 years. We're also looking at increasing our capacity to tell compelling stories online. Jolene mentioned videography. We launched the Doing Business in the Golden Triangle video series, but for the first time, we're going to be hiring and have hired professional video production people to tell some compelling video stories. Very short. These will be 30-second to 60-second videos, but it's just to get their attention and get them to engage. And then lastly, we want to increase our capacity to give virtual tours to company executives and site selection consultants. We can't afford to pay a lot of people to come and visit our community. And just to give you an idea of the cost, Butte put together some money and hosted 3 site selection consultants to come in, and it was about $30,000 to bring in 3 site selection consultants for a period of about 2 days. Very expensive. So if we can entice their interest and give them a virtual tour, then we might be able to entice them to come and visit. So we're excited. We want to engage more investors in this effort. The one example that Jolene showed, the reason we were focusing on incentives is because an industry executive that we had worked with years ago who ran a company in Great Falls, no longer lives in the state, gave us that inside market intelligence. Hey, Alberta put $9 million incentive package on the table. You got to beat that. So you see Jolene worked
Which
with
we did.
partners, put 10.7 million on the table. So the engagement from all of you with the knowledge and the connections you have is so important, because it can't just be a handful of us at GFDA working on this. We need to put the entire community and the entire region to work on it. So we're pretty pumped up. Hopefully we'll. Yes, there's a question. Will the video stories be similar to Under the Big Sky series? They will, except they'll be very, very short. We just had the kickoff call. We actually ended up hiring Steve's firm to produce the videos. I got to give DCI credit. We've had 3 competitions to invest our money in consulting services, and we've had 6 to 12 companies submit proposals for each one, and they've been very competitive. But DCI has won all 3 of them. So we're hoping there's some good bang for the buck in working with one firm on all 3. But yes, we thought it was better to do very short videos, but to have them very well done and very compelling, as opposed to, we've all seen the snore videos of watching minutes of Great Falls is very special, but a lot of things that people like to talk about, as Steve mentioned, there are a lot of hills out there. Well, there are a lot of rivers, there are a lot of interstates, there are a lot of things. So we really need to hone our message in on first targeting the companies that we can really land here and will fit here long term, because we want them to stay here for decades and invest in the community, but also that are going to have that catalytic impact on the rest of our economy.
Great, thank you.
And we're always looking for ideas. So please, just like Under the Big Sky, if you have ideas, please get them our way.
Fantastic. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Like I said, we're going to be sending out a follow-up email with some links to resources and documents, but we just really appreciate all the support. It takes a team. It takes all of us in order to attract businesses to the Golden Triangle. So thank you very, very much.